Two things you want running like a well-oiled machine: your favorite sports team and your ride. The same hard work that goes into earning a championship is the same effort Gladstone, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram puts into keeping your vehicle in top shape. That goes from the day you purchase your vehicle to every day after that. And it's fast and easy too. Go to kcpowerhouse.com and within a few clicks, you can take care of everything. From getting a Powerhouse deal on a new car, truck, or SUV to scheduling a maintenance appointment, the team at Gladstone, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram has got you covered. The same great feeling you get watching our teams win is exactly what the team at Gladstone works and trains for every day. 100% customer satisfaction. It's not easy to achieve, but nothing worth having ever is. If you want a truly exceptional experience from a winning team, try the KC Powerhouse. Gladstone, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram. Two things you want running like a well-oiled machine: your favorite sports team and your ride. The same hard work that goes into earning a championship is the same effort Gladstone, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram puts into keeping your vehicle in top shape. That goes from the day you purchase your vehicle to every day after that. And it's fast and easy too. Go to kcpowerhouse.com and within a few clicks, you can take care of everything. From getting a Powerhouse deal on a new car, truck, or SUV to scheduling a maintenance appointment, the team at Gladstone, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram has got you covered. The same great feeling you get watching our teams win is exactly what the team at Gladstone works and trains for every day. 100% customer satisfaction. It's not easy to achieve, but nothing worth having ever is. If you want a truly exceptional experience from a winning team, try the KC Powerhouse. Gladstone, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram.
Open. Catch. Touchdown. Jacobs cutting back. Getting to the edge. Jacobs is in for the touchdown.
Of course, the crowd wants Reed to go for it. Wouldn't be surprised if he did on 4th down and 1.
So, anyways, with that, time's yours.
Welcome to 4th and 1. I'm Todd Palmer, joined by Nick Jacobs, and today is a special edition, working our way toward the season, and we will have a preview of the Browns game coming up. I'm sure Nick's already rewatched the playoff game from last year at least 7 times, and that's just this weekend. But
it's only twice, Todd. Stop lying to people.
But a lot of you probably remember August 27th was Therese Paylor Day. Obviously, those of you who've listened to this podcast for a long time know that Nick and I were both close with Therese. And so we had talked to some people for a story that I put on kshb.com and for some content that ran in our Chiefs pregame show ahead of the Vikings game on the 27th, Nick, that you had put together there. And we wanted to share that in a wider format today. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to play, in the full length interview, and just share that with people who also miss Therese. So anyway, let's just kick it off, Nick. Unless you have any objection, we'll just kick it off with Chris Ballard. You want to set this up for me?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so Todd and I reached out to a handful of people around the league. A lot were able to accommodate and do it for us, and we were greatly appreciative of that. And I just want to get their thoughts on Therese and the impact he may have had on them, or kind of just their relationship with him and their communication that they had with him. Because I knew Therese was respected by a lot of NFL people. I knew he was respected by a lot of agents, and just the way he approached and handled himself and how he went about being a journalist and being a human being in general and genuinely caring about each one of them. That's why him and I got along the way that we did. And him and I were a ton like each other in that regard. And that's why him and I became as close as we did, not just from a football perspective, but just from a value and character perspective and what we both valued and the impacts we hoped to make on the world and things of that nature. So to kind of hear that be formulated by NFL people, I'm glad that a lot of people recognized and noticed that too. So with Colts GM Chris Ballard, who was more than willing to do this, and thank you to the Colts PR staff for also taking time out of a very busy training camp to have Chris come down there and do it. So I'm very appreciative of both of them for taking the time. So here's Colts GM Chris Ballard on Therese. And my first question for you is, what's your favorite memory of Therese?
Well, I mean, like what I appreciated about him and about Therese so much was he loved football. He wanted to learn. Like he didn't have all the answers like none of us do, but had a really humble spirit about him. And I love that about him. And I'll never forget when we drafted Braden and Quentin Quentin in the first and Braden in the second, 2018, he texted me and he said, you took two of my all juice guys. And I said, I know, I read it. So that was a pretty cool moment. And, he just was a special guy in terms of his love for the game, his passion for the game, his curiosity to learn the game, and his humble spirit where he didn't necessarily think he had all the answers, and he was just trying to learn and get better at his craft. And I really appreciated that about it.
And I think is there something in particular that you think made him unique from most people that like is going to stick with you?
His curiosity about the game and always trying to figure out the why behind what you were doing and the players you took. Like every year he would come to camp, he would always have really good questions about why. Tell me why you think this is going to work with this player. He goes, I liked him, but why did you take him for the Colts? And I always thought it was a compliment when Therese would tell me, he goes, Chris, I can identify Colt players when I'm watching them. And that was humbling for us because that's what we wanted.
And I'd say if there's something in particular, is there anything that you'll remember most about Therese outside of the curiosity and his passion and all that?
He was really positive. Like anytime I ever talked to him, it was never negative. He was always positive and encouraging. He's almost complete opposite of what the journalistic world has become today, where everybody's in a gotcha moment or, trying to catch you. No, Therese was about getting to the truth and the why behind what you were doing. And because he loved the game so much, he loved the game of football. And that's why I thought he was so good for the game of football. Because he was a great ambassador, with his writing regarding the game.
And then my last question for you is, what do you hope people take from what Therese brought in his writing and his approach and his style?
He was curious. And to me, that's a great trait for people to have. Even as he rose through the profession, I met him in 2013 when I first, went to Kansas City, and his curiosity and passion for football, I think should be admired by everyone. And I think everybody that has that curious trait to want to improve and have enough humbleness about them, to want to learn, instead of just making a quick judgment. He wanted to learn the why. And I appreciate that about him. I missed his camp visit. I thought I was thinking about him the other day. Usually he'd make a stop in the camp, and it was always so positive and never, I felt I talked very freely with Therese. And because my trust level was so high with him, and I knew that his intentions were always in the right place.
And then, I guess my last, sorry, I had one more question, but
that's okay.
There. For you, have you had, like you said, have you had some of those moments where it kind of hits you from time to time where you're waiting to see, an article or something like that?
Yeah, well, there's no doubt the draft was not, the draft, there was a lot of thought, about him, because we would talk frequently during draft time. And this year in training camp, when he would ask about all the draft picks and guys that he liked and guys that he didn't quite see it. I liked having those discussions, and it was never just a 5-minute encounter with Therese. We, with 5 minutes would turn into an hour. So yeah, those things I miss.
Yeah. I mean, I feel for, that hit me in the feels when Chris Ballard was talking about a 5-minute conversation turned into a 20-minute conversation. Cause I know, especially early in, back when Therese and I were in the high school beat together, there's an old saying, stuff rolls downhill, right? It doesn't roll uphill. So when, Therese and I were at the bottom of the totem pole together there. And so if we needed to air grievances, like it kind of had to be lateral at that point because there was no one below us to discuss it with. So, it wasn't uncommon for one of us, especially if we're having a tough day or we wanted to celebrate something, to call the other one. And, like you said, that 5-minute conversation would turn into several hours. I remember sitting in the utility closet at my old house in Olathe at night, because if I was sitting in the living room, it would keep my wife up because of how close the bedroom door was. So I'm sitting in this little utility closet on top of the washer and dryer for just hours, having some of those conversations. I know, I know you have some of those stories too.
Yeah. No, Therese, he's a very understanding person, listened to who people were and what they had going on and remembered what they had going on. And so, like you said, I totally understand what Chris Ballard was saying. Cause there were conversations where I was like, all right, man, 10 minutes, dude, we'll set aside 10 minutes. It'll be fine. We'll do it that way. You'll get back to writing your article. And then before I know it, it's an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe even sometimes 3 hours later. And I'm like, Therese, you really need to get back to the article. He's like, yeah, I really wanted to ask you that question, man. And it always turned into something like that. So, it was, he was a very curious guy, very inquisitive person. And so we always had a lot of thoughts to share with one another.
So Ballard, of course, worked in the Chiefs organization before he became the Colts general manager. Another guy who was in the Chiefs organization when Therese came onto the Chiefs beat was Matt Nagy, who was the offensive coordinator and got to know Therese pretty well. And so, like you said, listen, when I tell you that this doesn't happen very often, we reached out to the Bears PR staff as they prepared for their last training camp. This is between weeks 2 and week 3 of the preseason. I guess I'd reached out a little bit before that, but they went out of their way, to make Matt Nagy available to talk to us a little bit about Therese, because he wanted to share his thoughts about Therese. And so let's play that real quick. Here's our interview with Matt Nagy talking about Therese Paylor.
What was your relationship with Therese like?
Yeah, you know what? It was I thought it was a really cool relationship because it was really built from the first time I got there on a lot of storytelling, which everyone talks about. It was always the best part about Therese was the fact that he was just always so calm and just so interested in what you had to say. And I think a lot of times you find guys that are like him and you appreciate when they're actually listening to what you're saying and they're not worried about their next question. You understand what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Like, I thought that was awesome about him. And he'd always end, like I said, in our tribute to him, he'd always end every conversation with me with like, do you got a cool story for me? He'd always say, Nags, you got a cool story for me? He was always looking for something that was a little bit out of the box or something that he could present that wasn't just common to everybody. And that's what I loved about him. And that's what I miss so much about him.
Do you have like a favorite memory or a favorite story?
Well, I would say the one with T is probably we were at the Senior Bowl and down in Mobile one year, it was a few years ago, and it was literally right after the Chiefs had won the Super Bowl, and he was sitting there by himself in the stands off in the corner, and I happened to see him, and so we went over and we walked over, we got together, and he started doing a story, and he was just so intrigued and interested in just finding out about, Brett Veach and Coach Reed and Patrick and just what it was like being with those guys when I was there. And again, he was asking me for cool stories about Coach Reed, and which I got a million of. But we got to sit together on a nice sunny day and just talk football for about 20 minutes so he could put a story together. And I just, every summer when I was in Chicago, he'd come out and make a stop in Chicago. And it was the same thing, just being able to chill out, tell stories, and just appreciate each other.
He loved the Senior Bowl. He was bummed when he couldn't go, back in, or wasn't going to be able to go. But you were probably one of the last people that got to actually see him in person, because he and Ebony locked down, in March of 2020. So you were probably one of the last people that got to actually hang out with him. So
yeah, I may have been. And, actually a few days prior to everything happening, unfortunately for him, and then his passing, I got a text message from him, and he was just talking about, the quarterback situation, and the storyline at that time was just what's going to happen with Carson Wentz. And he was just trying to, just see if I knew anything or where we were. And he kind of joked at the end, just saying that Lord knows I've had a lot of no's, but it'd be great if I could maybe have, get an answer on the direction of that before anybody else. And I think that just goes to show who he is. He's always looking to try to be able to help out who he works for and who he works with. And then, of course, building relationships and conversations with people he knows, like myself.
Yeah. You mentioned him coming to training camp and spending some time. Have you caught yourself having a moment where, you were like, oh, he's not here, he's not coming this training camp?
Yeah, it's strange, because every year, even back in Kansas City, always seeing him there with his notepad and always just kind of looking at you and just kind of like shaking his head yes when he asked you a question, and just, you knew he was thinking about what you just answered with. And you miss that, because again, I'm just going to go back to just keeping it real simple. When you have good people that do good things, and that's what you did, it was really, really easy to give him a lot of your time. And when you're working with a guy like him and you're telling stories, you feel good about it, and you want to help him out because he treats you good. And that's just the common denominator that you hear from everybody in the sports world, is you hear about how well he treated people, in a tough business. And that's why he's so sorely missed, because he really did it the right way. And I think now it's neat to see people talk about him. I love all the recognition that he deserves. I mean, he's as good as they get.
I was going to ask you what made him so special, but you already answered that. So we grew up, Therese and I were on the high school beat together coming up. And then I followed him on the Mizzou beat, stuff like that. So we knew each other pretty well. And I would occasionally drop in at Chief stuff, but I miss his bucket hat reports from training.
Oh, man, no doubt. No doubt. Yeah, well, he's the best, man. He is the absolute best.
So I appreciate your time. I always like to, Therese has his, I always like to ask my last question, anything I wasn't smart enough to ask.
No, I would just say, you know what? I just, you have these conversations about him. It shows the impact that he had. And when you're in training camp like we are, and for him to be able to go across the country and visit different camps, and then obviously following the Chiefs and what he did there, he just, he really is easy to love. And I think that's what everybody sees and feels. And so what a great man that did things the right way. And I think he gave a lot of young people, or old people of any age, gender, race, sex, whatever, it doesn't matter. You want to be like T. And when you do that, you leave a legacy, and he did that.
All right, Nick Jacobs, tell me a cool story about Therese.
No, don't put me on the spot like that. I will.
Did you have a nickname for him?
No, I call him Therese. Okay,
right.
That's what I called him. Now he called me the boss, and then I'll reveal why he called me that to people. Anytime I walk in a room, he'd be like, "Oh, it's the boss. The boss is here," and I'm like, "Dude, stop!" And like and he said basically what it was is like he said, I'm like a Sicilian mob boss. I never forgot anybody who crossed me and what their transgression was and what day it was and what time. So
how long is the notebook on my transgressions?
I still talk to you, so you should feel honored about that. But no, like it just I don't know. I mean, I know Therese and we had conversations from time to time about just not letting social media get to us, and that was tough early on. And so we could vent that to each other at times, but like he did a really good job of getting me to just not feel like I had to answer everybody all the time and kind of say, check the TL or something like that. And, you know, it evolved over time where we both wanted to make more time for family, friends, and stuff like that. And not because that's the thing, like a lot of people don't know about people that are beat writers, no matter what the sport is. It's a grind and you have to be on 24/7 because you may have to break news at any moment. And that can be fun to cover the teams no matter who they are, no matter what sport they are. But it also, there's times where you're going to miss family events. You're going to miss family holidays. You may have to move 12 different things just to be able to go to a birthday and have, you know, a family birthday and have somebody cover for you so that if news breaks on a contract signing or somebody gets, you know, somebody parts ways or something like that like
positive COVID tests,
that too in this era, like it's just all those things that like you don't realize that, you know, like, I mean, whenever I try to get Therese to go to movies with me just to try to give him like a mental break and kind of reset for a couple hours, part of the agreement we made was he'd keep his laptop in his SUV so that if something broke, he could keep his phone out, have an alert pop up, and then he could go out and confirm what he needed to and write the article. And I was like, dude, we'll go somewhere that's got Wi-Fi and we can, you know, we can do it over with your laptop so you can hurry out there if you need to. And then if I need to get a refund from the movie for you and we check it out at a different time, it's not a problem. So, but yeah, no, it's just those are a little bit pieces on it, but no, hearing from Ballard and Nagy was just fantastic.
Yeah, and for a little bit more insight about what Therese meant, the growing influence he had, in the Pro Football Writers Association and among his colleagues. You talked to Bob Glauber, who was in the room when Therese stood up and talked about what Terrell Owens meant. And Terrell Owens, famously had not been voted into the Hall of Fame 2 years, despite the fact that he had an open and shut case. Like, based on what he did on the field, there's no doubt Terrell Owens is a Hall of Famer, but some of his off the field stuff, some of his, the perception that he wasn't always a great teammate and a great locker room guy, kind of held him out. Therese got up and talked about what Terrell Owens meant to him when he was growing up in Detroit, or when he was going to college at Howard University. And it made a difference. And Bob Glauber is absolutely convinced that the reason that Terrell Owens finally got voted into the Hall of Fame in year 3 was because of Therese Paylor and what he had to say. So you want to set this one up? Anything more to add about Bob Glauber before we play that interview?
No, I just loved Bob's article when he wrote about Therese after he passed, because that was a story that, Therese took being a Hall of Fame voter really, really seriously. It meant the world to him, and he was really happy to get that Hall of Fame jacket and to be able to wear that into the Chiefs locker room sometimes. And he would joke with me. He'd be like, I got to remind him sometimes, Jacobs, that, that I am a Hall of Fame voter. But, it just, like, I knew what it meant to him, and I was so happy for him to have that opportunity and to be able to get to do that. So, yeah, no, I just wanted to get Bob's perspective from being in the room with him and what that was like during the Hall of Fame thing, and also hearing from a fellow writer that has to deal with things on a national scale and what he saw in Therese's writing.
All right, so here's Bob Glauber of New York's Newsday.
My first question for you: what were your initial impressions when you either read or met Therese?
Oh, Therese was a ball of energy. Very, very passionate about football, very passionate about writing, and very passionate about the craft of writing. And he just loved everything about the business, talking to people. He was a football geek. And, some people just have a way about themselves where you just know they have it. And Terez was that guy. He just got it. And he got it from the start. And he got it from a very, very young age. Had the passion, the intellect, and the wherewithal, as well as the motivation to really be a star in the business.
And you wrote that article about Terrell Owens in the Hall of Fame. And I mean, personally being one of his best friends, I had no idea about that because Terez took being a Hall of Famer just so seriously and wanted to keep that secrecy on his end. What made you want to write that and share that with the world where people could kind of see his impact in that room?
Well, that was a moment where I'll never forget being in the Hall of Fame room where the selectors, we grinded out in there for 9 hours in these meetings. And I'll never forget when Terez took the floor talking about Terrell Owens. And, here's a very, very young guy. He's in a room full of mostly older white guys who are the Hall of Fame voters. And he shared his recollections about growing up and watching Terrell Owens. So he kind of brought a perspective that wasn't there in the room for other people watching Terrell Owens, who, a lot of guys look at Terrell Owens and say he was a disruptive factor. He was a cancer on teams. He was not good for football teams. But Terez kind of opened people's eyes to looking at Terrell Owens in a different way. And it had a profound impact on the room. And you could see that room turn on a dime. You could just feel it. You saw people looking at him and listening to him and captivated by him, the way he is talking about Terrell Owens. And that moment, I'll never forget it. It turned the room right around. And within a matter of minutes, the discussion changed. It kind of softened. And there was much more understanding of Terrell Owens as the player, as the athlete. And he got into the Hall of Fame that year, I'm convinced, because of Terez Paylor. Now, I had a talk with Terrell Owens. After Terez died, I kept thinking back to that moment. And I called Terrell, and I didn't think Terrell knew that had happened in the room. And it didn't. We DM'd on Twitter, and he was interested in. He says, "Could you call me?" We had a great discussion about it. He said he had no idea. He said he was brought to tears listening to it because he realized he had an advocate in the room that he never knew about. Now, it didn't change Terrell Owens' mind about showing up at the Hall of Fame. I don't think that's going to happen for quite some time, if at all. But I'm glad Terrell Owens knew that Terez Paylor said the things that he said in that Hall of Fame room to change the discussion and to change the whole momentum for Terrell Owens to get into the Hall of Fame, because those numbers were electrifying. Those numbers were, slam dunk Hall of Fame. It was the other stuff that kept him out for a while.
I mean, from looking from afar, like what impressions did you take from Terez's work?
From Terez's work?
Yeah.
Terez was a great writer. And I don't say that lightly. I would say that if he were still alive. He was just a great writer. He was able to kind of write for everyday people, but he would turn phrases that, as a writer, you say, hey, man, I wouldn't have thought of that. And it's a good way of, it was a melodic element to his writing almost. It just had a flow and a rhythm to it that it's hard to describe, but when you see it, you know it. And he had that ability to connect with the reader. Now, he also had the ability to connect with his subjects to get really good stuff out of them. Great quotes from coaches. You saw the outpouring of support from coaches, from players, from the NFL community. That was genuine. That was because Terez Paylor, he got with these people and he did what he had to do. He paid his dues. And the result was really descriptive, imaginative, and very insightful writing.
And then my last question for you. each person has something that they've missed about them that I've asked or that they're going to miss, and maybe a moment in time when it's going to hit them when you don't see him the next time or something like that. For you, what are we going to miss most about him or his writing?
Well, I didn't see Therese a lot during the year. We would connect on, national games and certainly at the Hall of Fame. But even though I didn't really see him all that much or talk to him all that much, I talked to him enough. I think I'll just miss that joy of living, that joy of doing something that he loved. We are privileged in this media business to do something that we enjoy doing. We get paid to write about sports, and talk about sports. That's a privilege. And Therese knew it. He loved it. And to be around him was to feel that pretty much all the time. Loved being around him. I'd watch him sometimes in meetings, he'd be listening to the conversation, but he'd writing stories. We're all on deadlines, and this is the day before the Super Bowl, and he had a couple of stories to write. He'd participate in the discussion, and all of a sudden you see the story come out the next day, and it's like, holy smoke, that guy wrote that while, being in a Hall of Fame meeting? Incredible. You've got to be gifted to be able to pull that off, and he was.
Yeah, you and I both had the privilege of working closely with Therese for a number of years here or there, and can speak to how gifted he was. But I also wanted to look. You and I were very moved that the city of Kansas City declared August 27th as Therese Paylor Day, and both of us, given what he meant to us, appreciated the Chiefs honoring him in the way that they did. Retiring his press box seat and making a donation to a scholarship fund. But none of that happens without his fiance, Ebony Reed. Ebony in what, barely like a little over 5 months, managed to raise 6 figures for that scholarship fund. And, I'm not saying she did it all by herself, but she did the bulk of the work for that. So that scholarship is permanently endowed, and, future journalism students at Howard University who are interested in studying sports journalism and maintain a 3.0 GPA will forever benefit now from Therese's legacy. And she was instrumental in making this the day happen to honor Therese. So I know you were in touch with her a lot this week. Ebony, for those who don't know, she works for the Wall Street Journal. She's an author, has a book coming out soon, I believe, called The Black Dollar. And very impressive, very accomplished woman. It was easy to see why Therese was so smitten with her.
Yeah, 100%. Because I got to chat with Ebony on the phone recently, and it was COVID. It's unique times. Yeah. But now, she's a phenomenal person, and she's really sweet, and she's a very driven individual, very hardworking individual.
She's tough now. She's tough too.
I'm not going to dispute anything. She was everything that Therese appreciated in people, and I totally understood why they meshed as well together as they did, and why they were so perfect for each other in that regard. And I will forever be thankful for her doing what she did to honor somebody that she cared about, and to keep his legacy going in the ways that she did, and also for his parents getting to come into town and kind of experience that, and also getting to hear all the stuff that they've gotten to hear since his passing. It's been great.
Yeah, the Chiefs invited his mom Ava and his dad Sharman to the ceremony where they retired everything. So
and
they were
Ebony
able to
as well.
Yeah, and Ebony was there as well. So they all got to participate in that ceremony before the game on the 27th.
I'm just hoping that all of them got to kind of experience what he meant to a lot of people, and the impact that he got to have in this town, and for people around the league, and just how quickly he was able to do all that, and also just what he meant to so many people, from a fan base, from coworkers, from colleagues, from all of that, but also on top of it, just how how big of an impact he had, how quickly he had that impact. And there's not a lot of people that can be the wordsmith that he was, be as caring as he was, but also be able to unite as many people as he did through his writing. So I hope they know that all the support they gave him, all the lessons that they taught him over the years, and just kind of how they raised him, that it all made it worth it, and it impacted a lot more people than I imagined they may have even anticipated.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know in speaking to them at the funeral, I know that like his mom was floored by the outpouring of support, and just, you know, the number and types of people who spoke out about what Therese meant to them. And look, one of the biggest names among them was Louis Riddick. I'll never forget reading his tweet, where he was telling people to check on your people, man, because you never know. And he was clearly devastated by the loss of Therese. And that's another guy. I always knew that Therese had a lot of respect for Louis Riddick. I always knew that he and Louis Riddick had conversations. We'd had lots of conversations about how Louis Riddick was one of our favorite analysts. And we had talked about how we were excited to see Louis Riddick, keep moving up at ESPN. He is obviously at Monday Night Football now and stuff like that. Riddick's a guy who, you reached out to, and he's another one who was more than happy to share his thoughts on what Therese Paylor meant to him.
My first question for you is kind of how did you and Therese meet up, and what kind of linked the two of you together?
I think it really started. I mean, I can't even tell you like formally when it started. I mean, I think it started because I really was, my connection with the Chiefs, obviously his connection with the Chiefs, the fact that he was covering them, and he saw on social media and through ESPN, that I had a relationship with Brett and Andy, and he had reached out through ESPN a few times for my thoughts on some different articles that he wrote, whether it be on the Chiefs or just on different trends in the NFL overall. And then when he moved on to Yahoo, I mean, it just continued to blossom to where he would do different projects from time to time. And we would talk about real big picture items and then kind of boil it down from there and get into some deep discussion about, real intricate X's and O's about the game of football. And look, the dude was as thorough and as fun, professional yet funny. I mean, it was just a real good relationship. And his writing, he just had a great way of kind of like getting the message across that he wanted to get in his writing. And he asked great questions. It was always formal yet informal. I mean, I really don't know what else to say other than the fact that he was just the pro's pro, and I loved it every time he came calling.
And like you said, whenever you did get those calls, did you kind of perk up a little bit when you see calling, or kind of, smile on your face type of thing?
Look, man, anytime he wanted to talk about something or he was working on something and said, "Hey, can I pick your brain?" I was like, just call me, and I'm there. I'm on it. And because he was very into every aspect of professional football and the Chiefs in particular. He obviously had some great resources down there. He was on top of things, right from the get-go. I know Brett Veach respected him a ton. Brett can, and Brett knew how much I respected him and all the different things that I had helped him with, or things that he asked for my opinion on. I guess I should say I wasn't really helping him. He could write 1,000 times better than I could. So yeah, I mean, there was never a time where he asked and I didn't, basically drop what I was doing to say, "You just let me know what you need," because he was just, you just kind of get that feeling from certain people that they are consummate professionals, good people, and do great work. And you want to be around people like that. You want to expose yourself to people like that. You want to befriend people like that. And clearly, I wasn't the only one who felt that way.
Right. And for you, I'd say what are you going to miss most about about him.
Yeah, I think it's that professionalism. I think it's that combination of, here are the things that I really need to get out of this article, while at the same time, it was like two guys talking in a bar and having beers about it. And you know what I loved about him is when he got to Yahoo, like he would write it exactly as I said it. And I kind of liked that about it. He didn't, there's times where I can be very raw and a little bit, let's just say, not PC about certain things, about the way I feel about the game. And he would write it exactly that way. And I respected that because he was trying to kind of like convey exactly what I was telling him in a very authentic way. And it wasn't anything that was offensive or nothing like that. It was just, and there was just that natural trust that I knew that he knew what I was trying to say, and he wasn't going to try and have one of those, oh, I got you type of moments where then people would come back to me and go, you can't talk like that, or you can't convey yourself that way. And that just speaks to the realness and authenticity of him that I think everybody will miss. And I'm sure over time we would have continued to kind of broaden that spectrum, and who knows what he would have wanted to work on that maybe I could have offered him some kind of assistance with. And it's just a damn shame in every way imaginable that I won't ever get to do that, and a lot of other people won't either.
Right. And then my final question for you is, what do you hope journalists take from his work, or from his, I would say, his characteristics, or who he was as a person?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is this, man. And I say this about everything concerning professional sports anyway. The human interaction and the amount of trust that needs to be fostered and grown and nurtured is what I think every journalist should look to try and establish with everyone that they, call upon to help them with things, or, assist them with different projects that they're doing, in the same way that he did it, which is just genuine and authentic and real, and conveyed a level of passion for what he was doing that is extraordinary. And that's what made me always want to help, and always want to say, hey, look, whatever you need, whatever perspective I can give you, I'll give you. Because I could tell he wasn't just trying to meet deadlines, man. He was trying to tell stories, and he was trying to educate people. We say in TV all the time, it's about informing, educating, and entertaining the people who are watching. I think he did that with his writing. He tried to inform people. He tried to educate them, make them smarter about the game. And he tried to add his own twist to it and entertain them a little bit. And I think that came through in his writing. And I think everyone should try and follow that kind of model and go down that kind of path like he was.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think there's a lot from the way that Therese conducted himself that people can try to take from and incorporate into their own lives, whether you're a sports writer or not. Just the way that you treat people, the respect that you have for people, the authenticity, like Louis Riddick was talking about. I mean, when Therese showed an interest in you, it wasn't because he felt like he was obligated to, or he felt like he was going to get something out of it. It was because Therese genuinely cared. Most of the conversations that I remember today about Therese have nothing at all to do with football. I mean, a lot of them are jokes, because I love to try to make him laugh because he had that great belly laugh. But most of them are about family and, our own personal demons, that we would share with one another. Like, that's the stuff that I carry with me. And that's the authenticity, I think, that connected with a lot of people like Louis Riddick and other people around the NFL.
Yeah, I think from us doing all those interviews, I think what was really cool is just how universal they all felt, the similar aspects of who Therese was, what he stood for, who he was about. I enjoyed being able to hear that universally from pretty much all of them. And then on top of it, just kind of how many of them appreciated his writing and his style of writing and how unique and special it was. So it was it was just nice to hear that, he, on top of it, everybody felt like they made a connection with him, and they had something that, was like, just some people, I would say some people in this world, you feel like they put on the fronts that they need to with certain people. But I think with Therese, it was constantly just a genuine connection and caring about people, and just kind of fellowshipping on a regular basis with people that I think left a lasting impact.
Yeah, look, there's a reason why when Patrick Mahomes was getting ready to announce the 15 of Mahomes Foundation, that he reached out to Therese Paylor to tell him and give him the interview and give him the scoop on it and give him the chance to break that news, and it's because of the way he treated people. And look, Patrick Mahomes' agent knows as well as anybody, about that relationship and about the relationship that he had. So Chris Cabot is the last interview we're going to play for you guys. And Nick, I know you talked to Chris. He works in the Lee Steinberg agency, and Lee Steinberg's one of the heaviest hitters in all of the sport. But Chris is the guy who's directly in there helping Patrick get on every TV commercial in the world, it seems like, during these NFL games, man.
Chris is CEO of Steinberg Sports and Entertainment. Yeah. And he, that guy is going to be, he's a rising, if he's not already there, he's continually going to be a rising agent in the industry. And, and he performs for his clients, man. He gets the clients what they need from whatever they need from a marketing perspective, contract. I mean, he's doing a phenomenal job with that right now. Yeah. And so do you want to set up this interview with Chris Cabot talking about, especially there, he's another guy who connected with him at the Senior Bowl, just like Matt Nagy had. Yeah. And he has a similar story, just like everybody else, to where there's always something everybody appreciated about Therese. And this is what Chris appreciated about Therese. First question I got for you is, what were your impressions of Therese?
Oh my gosh. Loved him. Adored him. I mean, he was such a special man, such a special ray of light. Every time you saw him, big smile, super warm. I remember a Senior Bowl where I got a chance to really just kind of hang out with him and spend some time in an elongated period, and just a wonderful man, treasure to our society. Dearly miss him, and look forward, God willing, to meeting him in heaven one day.
And for you, kind of what do you feel made Therese just so unique to deal with?
He cared. He truly cared. Every story was a masterpiece for him. Every detail mattered. Every quote mattered. He would call you to make sure that he had exactly the quote. He would cross-check everything, cross-reference everything. He really won the respect of players and staff and folks, with the Chiefs organization and folks that represented players on the Chiefs like myself. So just a consummate professional, heart of gold, and a special man.
And then finally, do you have a favorite memory of Therese that kind of sticks with you at all?
I do. The time I spent with him at the Senior Bowl that one year, I mentioned just really special time, but I'll say this. The thing that probably sticks with me the most is I remember that one time there was a little bit of miscommunication on something, and he went out of his way to remedy it, in the most loving, caring, professional way. He cared so much about accuracy. He cared so much about people's feelings, their thoughts, protocols, doing things the right way. As a result, he earned all of our trust, and he was so beloved. So that was Patrick Mahomes' agent, Chris Cabot, and I know that was a pretty big fish to land there, Nick.
Well, I mean, I definitely want to thank Julia, who's in charge of their over at Steinberg Sports and Entertainment. She's their VP of Media and Public Relations, and she's from St. Louis, so she understands the Missouri area. So I definitely want to thank her for helping make that happen, and Chris for being able to take the time to do it. Because I honestly, when I did the interview that day, I was talking to Chris just a couple hours before the Chiefs and Cardinals preseason game. Yeah. So I'll be forever grateful for every single person that took time out of their day to do these interviews, and everybody else who helped make those happen.
Yeah, and I almost forgot. I mean, we have kind of a bonus. It wasn't one of the series that we did ahead of Therese Paylor Day, knowing that news was coming. But I know up at training camp, Peter King, as he does every year, kind of makes his way around the country. He stopped in at Chiefs camp, and you were able to catch up with him and ask Peter King about what who's with NBC Sports now, what Therese Paylor meant to him and what he felt like his impact was on the industry.
Yeah, so like Aaron Ladd wanted to go over and ask a couple Chiefs questions, and then I knew that Peter and Therese had a strong respect for Peter and the work that he had done and how he built up. And Peter was one of the guys that Therese had read for quite some time, and I kept telling Therese, like, whenever we would chat and some of his career aspirations, I'm telling you, dude, like, if you. Like, we'd talk about paths and everything, and I do what I could to help him, and he did what he could to help me. Because he's one of the references for my job that I ended up getting a 41. So I was very grateful for him doing that. And he, to him, it wasn't a big deal at all. Just part of a Thursday whenever they called him that day, and he was getting ready for, if I remember correctly, I think he was getting ready for the Chiefs Titans preseason game that day. Back in 2017, whenever he got that call. And it was funny because our HR director, he still tells me the story, and I gave Therese some stuff about it whenever he's like, yeah, he's like when I called him, and he's like, yeah, Therese was kind of a little guarded because he didn't know who it was, and Therese would always get calls from strange numbers, and he didn't know if it was an agent or who it might be or one of his sources, and so he just always kind of had to be on the ready for it. And then I know the HR director said as soon as he said my name, he's like it's like a light switch turned on. He said I couldn't get Therese to stop at that point about saying such good things, and he's like just going from what it did to that. So it's just always kind of funny to hear that, and I give Therese stuff about it, and he'd be like, "Man, shut up, Jacobs." So it was always fun. But yeah, no. So I want to give Aaron Ladd credit because he went over and asked Peter for the interview, and then Peter was kind and gracious enough to give us time and to then to tell us about what Therese had essentially done for the industry.
Therese Paylor, I was just getting to know. In fact, 6 days before he died, I texted him and I said, "Are you going to the Super Bowl? Love to have dinner with you Friday night." And that Friday night, I was going to say to him, I really want you, if you have ever any interest in moving, I would really love to see you come to NBC. And honestly, at some point, I was going to talk to him about it in person, and I just obviously never had that chance. I just think he's a model for so many people in our business, and he's a model not only because, as Patrick Mahomes wrote in that piece at NBC, he is a model for the next generation or two of young black sports writers. We still do not have nearly as many black and minority sports writers in the press boxes of America. And look, when I started in this business in 1984, you could count black football writers on one hand. And look, it's better, okay? But he was determined to make that one of his life passions. He was doing it. He connected with so many minority journalists, reporters, and the fact that his scholarship is going to be helping generations of young black journalists at Howard is just, it's so perfect.
So there's Peter King. And I got to be honest, I loved listening to Therese's podcast with Charles Robinson on Yahoo. But I think a Peter King, Therese Paylor podcast, like if he had ever left and gone to NBC, would have been otherworldly, man. Like, I think that would have been fantastic to listen to.
Well, and it's just funny because from a career perspective, and him and I chat, man. Like, I mean, I'll share this piece, and I told him, I was like, dude, whatever you can do to get to NFL Network. I was like, once you get there, like, I mean, that's going to be your in with a lot of NFL front offices in that regard. And I said, you'll make a lot of networking contacts. And I was like, that's kind of your next play if you can get there. But whenever Peter King told me that he was want to get him hired on NBC, I'm like, well, never mind. Yeah, he didn't need he was gold at that point if that had been able to transpire. So it's unfortunate that we won't get to see a lot more of Terez's writing and the impact he could have had on the industry and on the game. But just on people in general and just kind of the life he had ahead of him. But like you and I've talked about time and time again, I'm so thankful for every single one of us that got to have that time with him and got to experience the impact that he had on so many people and so many lives. So I'll forever be thankful for that.
Right. It's still, especially as we enter another football season, it's still a little bit raw, I think, for a lot of us who knew him. And it's hard to believe that, we're never going to meet up for lunch at Red Robin, on a random Thursday, just because, my son has been begging to meet you and to see Terez again. It stinks, man. It stinks.
Yeah. And like I've talked about on Twitter, people may not realize it when I say there's all these, checkpoints. So there's a ton more of them to go.
Yeah, no, I mean, this, cut down day, started training camp. I mean, first game coming up Thursday, first Chiefs game. I mean, there's a lot of times when, you'd normally just reach out, say hi, just check in on your buddy, make sure he was handling things all right. Because I know he was, stressed. Like that dude. I mean, the more and more, I don't know how he fit in. The more I hear about the time he spent talking to a guy like Josh Tolentino, who is now the beat writer for the Eagles of the Philadelphia Inquirer, or the conversations he had with the Louis Verdicks of the world, and with the Chris Ballards of the world and stuff like that. The more I'm one, so appreciative that he made time for me when he did, but two, I don't understand how he fit it in a day. I just don't.
Yeah, I'll never know, but I'm so thankful that he had the impact he did on so many people, including both you and I.
Yeah. All right. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed that kind of retrospective on Terez Paylor through the eyes of some pretty heavy hitters in the NFL. And this NFL season just frankly will not be the same without him. There's no way around that.
But that is also why, in my opinion, there was a Terez Paylor Day, because of hearing from that many people from across the country, and why he, in my opinion, definitely deserved a day and deserves the legacy with the scholarship he's going to have and the memories that so many people are going to have of him.
Yeah. So, well, hey, just try to live your life with juice, kids, and take care.